Hey, welcome there to another episode of the Typewriter video series. This is Joe Van Cleve, and today we're going to talk about rolls of paper, typing on endless rolls of paper, a la Jack Kerouac style. So stay tuned. Well, as you might know, the famed beat author Jack Kerouac is known to have typed one of the first rough drafts of his famous novel, On the Road, using a long roll of teletype paper. This fact became apparent to a lot of the early typewriter bloggers in the middle aughts, notably Little Flower Petals and Strike Through, and a lot of us later typewriter bloggers who followed in their paths started thinking about using teletype paper or other kinds of rolls of paper as a means of typing. I was interested in this when I first heard about it, and I initially was unable to find paper of the standard width for use in a typewriter. So I went looking around in hardware stores and painting stores and craft stores. What I noticed was in craft stores and art supply stores, there were rolls of art paper that were about 12 inches wide, really too wide for use in a standard width carriage machine. I wanted something narrower, and the only other paper I could easily find was the 6-inch wide brown craft paper that's used for masking, for painting in hardware stores. Then I started doing some internet searching, and I found 3M makes a white colored 6-inch wide roll of masking paper, and I was able to locate a roll of this paper at my local Napa Auto Parts store for painting, automotive painting supplies. So I began using this 6-inch wide roll of paper. I had originally built a bracket for this roll that sits behind the typewriter on the table. And you feed the paper forward from the roll through the typewriter and then back over it onto the floor behind it. I used that for quite a while, but then more recent years I've begun to type using these little tray tables. So more recently I became interested once again in trying to locate standard width teletype paper, and I did a more thorough search on Amazon.com, and the key was using the phrase teleprinter paper. And if you use the search phrase teleprinter paper, you'll find a whole bunch of links for sellers, third-party sellers on Amazon who are selling this paper. I was able to order a roll, and it came in this last week, and so this is what I'm going to report about. This is the roll that I received. It is just under 8.5 inches wide. It's 8 7/16. And it is 4.5 inches in diameter. I don't remember what the foot length is of this. It's probably under 100 foot in length. So comparing the sizes between the 6-inch and the 8.5 inch, obviously you can see the difference there. You can also maybe notice the difference in color between the two kinds of paper. The automotive masking paper is a whiter paper. It's thinner and crisper, more like, almost like tracing paper, but a little bit thicker than that. But it doesn't take the ink nearly as well as the teletype paper, which is a more cream-colored paper. It's also toothier. It kind of resembles newsprint in some ways, I think, but it takes typewriter ink really well. And what I noticed when I first got the roll of this new paper is there was a liter of paper that looked like you could just tear it off and start the paper roll going. Well, the liter just tore off. And so what I had to do is I had to split it with a razor knife to get it started. But that was the only problem I had. The core diameter on both of these rolls was essentially the same. So like a 7/16 inch wooden dowel you can feed this paper into, as I do. I'm using these discs I'm using foam core board, but you can use cardboard or thin plywood or whatever. There's another one that goes on the other side, and this fits down on the scissor legs of my tray table as a convenient place to use it. So, and this simply sits down into the scissor joint, if you will, of the legs of the tray table. And it threads up into the typewriter there. And so far, I've been able to use this. The initial typings I've been doing have been pretty good. I like the quality of imprint. Well, here is a comparison between both types of paper. On the left is the 6-inch painter's masking paper. You can tell immediately that it's much whiter than the cream-colored teletype paper. I've white balanced my camera against this paper, and to my eyes, under this light, this paper does look white, and this looks cream-colored. So this is very close to what I'm seeing. But just to compare the quality of the imprint between them, you might be able to see that on the thinner, crinklier masking paper, the typewriter ink doesn't print nearly as dark. Some of the letters are fairly faint. They don't print completely well. But on the teletype paper, the printing is very much darker and nicer. It's a really nice quality of imprint. And I'll say that some of these words, I was hitting the typewriter key very lightly, and it still picks up a pretty good imprint. Now, these two samples were typed on the same typewriter with the same ribbon, which is the Corona Standard. So I think there's a significant difference in quality between the two. And again, you can notice, though, because this teletype paper is a cream-colored off-white, that correction tape is going to be a problem if you like to use it. One of the things I was kind of brainstorming here in this paragraph was about alternatives to using correction tape would be just to slash out the letters with a slash, a strike through, or simply correcting over them, over typing them, simply like this. Which one looks less objectionable for your eyes in terms of rough draft typing? Of course, if you were doing a finished quality piece for publishing, for sending to somebody else, you probably would not use teletype paper. You would probably use a whiter paper, and then you could use correction tape. But for the purposes of just rough draft writing, whatever you're familiar with or comfortable with, either a strike through or just simply over typing. I think comparing correction tape versus strike through versus over typing, for small errors, like not entire words, but just for single letter corrections, I think just over printing seems to be the least objectionable method so far. But that is the comparison in color and typing quality between the two papers. Oh, you might notice the teletype paper, or I'm sorry, the masking paper is very thin. You can see the letters through the back side of it. Whereas if you do the same test the opposite way, you won't see any show through. So definitely, this paper is definitely thicker than that paper. One of the things I wanted to discuss with you was what it's like typing on an endless roll of paper. If you've done any considerable typing with a manual typewriter, you'll know that coming to the end of the page is kind of an irritation, especially if you're in the middle of writing and you have a thought going and you're right in the middle of it. And it's hard to stop, interrupt yourself, unthread the old sheet, thread a new sheet in, get it straightened up, get it lined up, get it started at the top again, and then you can continue. It really represents kind of an interruption. And I can certainly see why our Mr. Kerouac was interested in this stream of consciousness style of writing where he didn't have to interrupt himself with those breaks at the end of the page. So having used this smaller, thinner roll of paper earlier for a few years, and now I've just begun using the wider roll, my experience with both is that it is a wonderful experience of writing with a typewriter. It frees up your typing experience to be much more stream of consciousness, uninterrupted writing. It really does feel sort of like you're part of the experience of writing with a word processor, in the sense that you're not interrupting yourself with paper. The problem of individual sheets of paper separate from each other, having to be loaded one at a time in the machine, is done away with. So you sling the carriage return back, you type, sling it, type, sling it, and you keep going and you never stop. That's what's wonderful about it. So it really does free up your writing experience. I think especially works well with this stream of consciousness, rough draft first draft mode of typing on a manual typewriter that is so crucial to the larger experience of being a writer and using both typewriters and digital media, which we covered in a previous episode of this series. So I would encourage you to do some searching around and look for this teleprinter paper. It's advertised as teleprinter. The label, as I indicated earlier, actually says teletype paper. Now, this particular reseller on Amazon was OfficeChase.com out of Phoenix, Arizona, who I happened to be buying it from off Amazon. But there was quite a few other resellers of this same kind of paper. The prices did vary quite a bit. I paid $9.64 plus shipping for this roll, so not too bad. The 6-inch wide roll of masking paper that I had purchased a few years ago was more than that, closer to $15 full retail. So this was a pretty good price. I would encourage you to get some and try it out for yourself and see how you like it. Well, until next time, this is Joe Van Cleve. Keep typing away, don't stop, and have a great day.